Apple's conference call going on right now. Let's get back to Josh Lipton and get details. Josh?
Carl, so on the conference call, Apple CEO Tim Cook talking more about the iPhone, not just how it did in the quarter, but also the trends he's seeing in the iPhone franchise. Take a listen.
For iPhone, while our worldwide revenue was down 17% from a year ago, declines were significantly smaller in the final weeks of the March quarter. Looking back at the past 5 months, November and December were the most challenging. So this is an encouraging trend. We like the direction we're headed with iPhone, and our goal now is to pick up the pace.
Now, CFO Luca Maestri, Carl, was also on the call going through some of the other segments. So Maestri talking about services, $11.5 billion, up 16%, called a double-digit growth that they saw in the App Store, Apple Pay, among other segments. Maestri saying services accounted for 20% of revenue in the quarter and 1/3 of gross profit dollars. He also talked about wearables. They set a new March record for wearables. The wearables business, actually, execs saying, now the size of a Fortune 200 company. Remember, Apple, of course, introduced the watch 4 years ago. Maestri saying the watch produced the best results ever for a non-holiday quarter. As for their cash position, Maestri saying they ended $225 billion in cash. It was a net cash position of $113 billion. They returned $27 billion to shareholders in the quarter. Of course, the board did authorize that additional $75 billion for share repurchases. They raised their dividend to 77 cents, an increase of 5%. The outlook, $52.5 to $54.5 billion. Remember, the street there was at $51.9 billion. Carl, back to you.
All right, Josh, thanks so much. Let's get back to Gene Munster. Gene, what's the most important thing you've heard so far tonight?
Carl, kind of buried in Cook's comments, he said that Apple is tinkering with different installment plans. And I want to try to decode what that means, is that this iPhone upgrade program that's had some success about buying your phone on a subscription basis, the hardware piece, it sounds like that they're tinkering with maybe extending that to other products. I don't expect any announcements in the next quarter or two, but I think that thematically longer term, this is really important for the stock. And the reason is that if Apple does, in fact, start selling products more holistically, this is a one-stop shop, more like a consumer staples type of a company, and you're buying it on a monthly basis, that inevitably would be a higher multiple for investors. So I was very much encouraged by that little nugget that Tim Cook gave us.
All right, you want to grade the quarter in your view, Gene?
Yeah, Carl, it's an A-. And specifically is, I think that what they're doing in terms of cash buyback and just the strength of this earnings is largely misunderstood. I suspect a lot of analysts tomorrow are going to bump up their price targets, but I want to impress upon people that this could be a much bigger company. You know, we talked about that $350. If you put kind of a low 20s, a Coca-Cola multiple on this gets you to a $350 stock.
All right, Gene, A-. Tim, you agree? Was that oof?
No, first of all, Gene has done, Professor Munster has done a phenomenal job this week grading the full spectrum of students, you know, and frankly, I think on Apple, I think the call here is really that this is a capital markets story that no matter what you think is going on with iPhones, it's going to continue to be a major support. Gene told us this is 25% upside in the stock alone. So again, I think this was an exciting day for Apple, even though we expected nothing major.
Right, but that 25% is over the next 3 years. That's what Gene's looking for, right? So let's talk about tomorrow morning. We've got something. We've got an A- quarter, which I would probably agree with Gene. We've got a stock that's bumped up against resistance now, and we've got most of this stuff priced in. So there's nothing in this conference call, nothing that I've heard so far that changes my mind. I still think you take profits tomorrow.
What was your worst grade in college? Do you remember?
A-.
Yeah, of course. It's like Melissa Lee. I mean, A-, the worst grade. Gene's been a pretty fair grader. I think that's a solid A-quarter, though. I mean, I don't
know what else you have to do.
What else do you have to do?
And again,
what do they need to do, Tim Seymour, to get an A from Gene Munster?
I think maybe we needed to see north of 20 on services. I think the guidance on China would have been something, even though it was better quarter over quarter sequentially. And again, they're non-comparable quarters on some level. But I do think that getting China back in line is a place where people need to see for this company to give it that next boost.
Can we say they're back on offense in any way, Karen?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, right? They did talk about some other things, wearables. Yeah, all that having been said, though, I'm just doing nothing tomorrow. It's doing nothing.
Isn't it also fair to say, though, that Apple swings the pendulum in terms of people being overly ebullient to being on the other side of it? I don't think we're even at that overly ebullient side yet.
Good word, though.
Thanks.
That is
That's what
a
I
good
do
word.
here, guy. I can't
I'll
do
give you
math in my head,
accolades for that.
but I actually am a
said
wordsmith.
you can do the math in your head.